Titans. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to start this off by saying that Titans is not a bad show. Like, at all. So if you have not clicked away, I am assuming you do not care about getting it spoiled, or you have already seen the show, and I am going to get into spoilers pretty quickly. So if you haven't clicked away yet, do so now. Okay, here we go. Starfire dies, Robin kills Batman, and Trigon gets summoned at the end of the season. Okay, but actually, let's rewind a little bit. One of my favorite things about this show is that each character got their moment to shine. There were great character moments throughout the entire season, and that works amazingly, especially since this narrative is a lot different from many versions of Titans that we've seen. Yeah. This show takes a lot darker and grittier take on the Titans. I mean, when you look at Teen Titans Go. And then you look at Titans. I also really appreciated the villain setup for Trigon, because instead of just having Raven and Trigon be the main focus, they found ways to incorporate other characters to dealing with Trigon themselves. The way they introduced him made sense, and it wasn't just a coincidence that he just so happened to be there. And also the CGI was actually done really well, especially for Beast Boy when he turns into a tiger, because sometimes it was a little shaky. It's not like, oh god, that definitely looks like CGI. A lot of the time it was just like, oh, he's a tiger. That's awesome. Some moments didn't look as amazing as other ones, but at the same time, I can't really think of a time where I was like, oh, that looks like terrible CGI. Except for this one moment, not with Beast Boy, but this. Yeesh. Pretty much every single character in this show is a lot different from their main comics version, especially for Corey. Not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. And then once I finally saw the first episode, I fell absolutely in love with this show, and especially for Corey's costume. And now seeing the first episode, a couple scenes of her in the costume and how it fit into the story, I absolutely fell in love with it.
Well, what do you know? It was worth it.
So Titans has a lot of characters. Like, a lot of characters. But personally, my favorite character in the entire show is koriand'r's, aka Starfire, played by Anna Jope. Literally everything that Corey does with this show is completely different from how she is in the comics, but I personally love this version a lot more. As I said, I really like the costume. For the music in the show is amazing. For the bar fight with Corey. It was literally perfect. I have no complaints about her character.
Chicken and waffles. On the house, apparently.
Well, I know one thing about you. Total badass.
My second favorite character is Dawn Granger, aka Dove, played by Minka Kelly. I absolutely love Dove's relationship with Hank. The character is amazing and badass and funny and is so caring. I also think that she arguably has the best costume in the entire show. Not to say that the others were bad, but hers is definitely my favorite and most comics accurate. Also, I believe the casting is absolutely perfect. Minka Kelly is amazing in the role. I also love Minka Kelly's performance in Detroit Become Human as North, which was my favorite character in the entire game. And then once I found out that she was playing Dove, I literally couldn't have been more excited.
You know he always likes to make a dramatic entrance.
True.
And for my third favorite character, I was actually really surprised, as it is Tegan Croft, who plays Rachel Roth, aka Raven. Really did feel for her in a lot of her more emotional scenes, especially with Dick Grayson and Corey.
I read the note.
Look.
You were just gonna leave me with them?
I just needed time to
Stop.
figure things out. Rachel.
I need to go back to the sisters!
Okay.
With that other demon half of her that would sometimes show up in mirrors or reflections, her face acting was amazing.
She'll be safe here. You will find her here. But they were wrong.
No!
So as I said earlier, this show is basically a show of great character moments. Some of my favorite moments include literally any scene with Corey or Dove. Like seriously, best characters in the entire show. And also Batman in the finale episode titled Dick Grayson. I know this is a Trigon illusion the whole time, but this was honestly the most terrifying version of Batman I have ever seen. And also the origin episode for Hank and Dawn I thought was done really, really well. The acting was amazing.
Oh my goodness.
And the subject matter that occurs in this episode was done really, really well, especially for something that is so serious and dark. One of my favorite fight scenes is Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl, or who used to be Wonder Girl at the time in this show, versus Corey. I also really appreciated that the way that the effects were done for the lasso and the way that Donna fought for the choreography was really close to how Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman fights in the DCEU. And if the show is connected to the DCEU, I would actually be really happy about that. And my final favorite moment is the Titans versus the Nuclear Family.
It's Corey.
Because up until this point, we saw a lot of the Titans fighting by themselves or in pairs, and at this point, we really had a good idea of what their power sets were and how they worked. And then seeing them all come together as Titans was absolutely amazing. I also thought that the Nuclear Family in this fight were badass and creepy at the exact same time. So I can happily say I don't have a lot of complaints about this show, but the complaints I do have are pretty major. Since this is the first show on the DC streaming service, there are a lot of cutaway episodes to side characters that are introduced and other teams that will be introduced in later shows. And I really think this show really suffers for that because yes, they are trying to build a universe. All these cutaway episodes with side characters that I do really like, it does take away from the crucial time that the show could have used to develop the main cast. It's also very unfortunate how underused Beast Boy is in this show. I understand that his character didn't really fit into the narrative for the story they were trying to tell, but for the first 3 episodes of the entire show, Gar only had 2 scenes, and they were some of the shortest scenes in the entire show.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it. I promise.
Heard that before.
And as Ryan Potter was cast as Beast Boy, so many of us were excited, and it's just very unfortunate to see how underutilized such an amazing character is. So this show was originally supposed to have 12 episodes in the first season, but it only ended up having 11, making the original season 1 finale be the season 2 premiere. Hopefully that is when we will be getting those new costumes and the pictures that we saw for both Corey and Rachel. Corey's costume looks great. I would like to see it in action first, but as far as Rachel's costume, it's okay. I know Raven is supposed to have a cloak, and the cloak always looks good in the comics, but if you think about it in real life, it's so impractical. And in this photo, it doesn't seem like the cloak is even an actual cloak. It's more just like this very thin sheet of silk, and it really seems to kind of be getting in her way. So let's talk about that end credit scene. If Crypto is going to be in the show, by the way, very excited for that. I need to see an Ace the Bat Hound reference or scene with Crypto. Whether it's just the slightest line from Dick or Jason, I'm for it. I just need a reference. So now, Trigon, the main villain of season 1, and I honestly hope he is the main villain for season 2. It's pretty much a given he's gonna be the main villain for the season 2 premiere, but I also hope he's a villain for most, if not all, of season 2. Now, of course, in season 1, we only see him in his human mortal form, except for when on Corey's spaceship, we get this really faint diagram of him in his demon mode.
Trigon. He was pulled back to his home and imprisoned, but she is the doorway that he can walk through.
I really hope that the show takes the time to use the CGI for his full-on demon mode and we mostly see him in that form, because this is nowhere near as terrifying or menacing as this. For Superboy, the main thing that I need for him in this show, I'm really excited for him to be a part of it, but he has to be depowered somehow. They did it similar for Corey so that it made sense in the real world and she wasn't too OP, making it so that she could only really mainly use her powers during the day.
Fucking night!
It worked really well for Kori, and it made her character a lot more balanced. The same thing needs to happen for Superboy. They could do the excuse that he's half human, so he's not as powerful, as half of his DNA is Superman and half of his DNA is from Lex Luthor. Not that version, this version. And since you're introducing Superboy and Krypto, this show already has way too many characters. I feel like since the main 4 members of the team weren't as developed in season 1, take the time to really develop them and the side characters during season 2. But if you want to add more characters down the line at the end of season 2 in an end credit scene, I am way more than for it. I would really like to see Zatanna, Ms. Martian, or maybe even Artemis. Who knows, the show could do whatever it wants. But overall, Titans is an amazing show. The best comic book show, if you ask me. And if superheroes were to exist in real life, this version for me is the most believable. Also, once again, just great character moments throughout, great costumes, great effects, great story. Amazing show.
Well, look at the mess we've made.